Jamendo.com. Hi guys, welcome.
Okay, hello guys, thank you for joining us again on another segment of our video on your way to grad school. So today we'll be talking about okay guys, in this video we'll talk about the statement of purpose, which is one crucial about this year, about this boy that they probably taught 6 years ago. They can't remember, so they will just write something. But if you sit with them and if they already have your statement of purpose, that will juggle much of their memory. You say that, oh wow, they will say that yes, I remember this student, and then they can tailor their letter.
How are you?
I'm good. Okay. Hello guys. Thank you for joining us again on another segment of our video on your way to grad school. So today we'll be talking about funding, scholarships, assistantships, and all the many names they call this thing, this money.
Money.
Yeah, so I know that for a lot of people, financial support is a big constraint when you're thinking of studying abroad. And the question is always, where do I find the money to go and do my master's abroad and all of that? So in this video, we'll be sharing some insights with you guys on how to get funding, how to apply, how to reach out, how to look for where to look, and how to package your application for funding. So let's start with Mosun. If I want to apply to school to a school in North America, I don't have the money to fund my own education. What should I do? What's the first thing I should do?
Okay, so in the course of your research, while reading through the website and all, you should have seen there's usually a section where they'll write funding, right? And so when you read through, you get to understand what kind of funding that department or school provides. And it also depends on the kind of program that you're applying for. So for example, if you're applying for a PhD, it's very likely that you get funding. And this funding could be a teaching or a research assistantship, right? And sometimes you may get a teaching and a research assistantship. For some people that are also applying, for a PhD, it's possible to get a fellowship. And usually a fellowship, I think in some cases, you may not teach or you won't have to teach for a year or for 2 years, right? And after that, if you now have a teaching assistantship as well, then you will start teaching from maybe your second or your third year. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing to do, for example, if you're applying for a master's and even for a PhD, is to send an email to the department. If you need some clarification on what kind of funding options they have, then you send an email to find out, okay, what's their funding package like. So there are some departments that do either full funding or partial funding. So partial funding means, okay, you're going to get part of the funding or part of the tuition and all, and then you have to complete, what's the word that I'm looking for? You have to supplement the funding, right? So this is something, personally, I wouldn't encourage accepting that kind of admission because it could be stressful. It's a lot of money to study in graduate school. Like, you need a lot of money. So what I would advise is like looking for schools that, provide full funding. So at least you're at peace. Because even after getting full funding, there's still some fees that you have to pay as a graduate student. Mm-hmm. Some of them run up to $1,200 per semester. And you have to put all these things into consideration while looking for funding. So just ensure that you read through, diligently read through the website, try to see what kind of funding that the department and the school provides, and then also send an email to the department and the graduate school for clarification. And then the types of assistantships that are available, we have teaching, research, and administrative assistantship. So these are just some. For teaching, obviously, it has to do with you teaching um, a lower level class, right? Usually undergrads, in first years, second years, and all. Sometimes you may teach like a general university course, right? So I think it's called like GST in Nigeria, something like that. So you may have to teach something like that. Maybe your department offers that course, so you would be one of the teaching assistants teaching the course, and you'll be getting stipends. Your tuition will be paid for, so that's that about teaching assistant. Then for research assistantship, you'll be assisting a professor, and then you'll be getting paid for that. Your tuition will also be paid. So I just know about those two, and I think for what I've just said, it applies both to people applying to the humanities and to sciences and engineering and all that. But then there are also some specific kinds of scholarships and assistantships specific to fields like engineering and the sciences. And I think, Kaede, you can talk about that, right?
Yeah, I can speak to how funding works for STEM courses. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So typically, when you want to apply for um, admissions in maybe it's the sciences or engineering, you need to approach a particular professor. So the way funding works in STEM is professors have their personal research that they are doing, and in most cases they've gotten grants for this research. So it could be from maybe Ford Foundation or from the National Society of Engineers or something. Like some of these professors have grants of like $1 billion for a project they are working on, maybe say for 5 years or 10 years. And so when you start searching for programs and you start looking at faculty and their research, and you see that, oh, this professor's research or project aligns with what I'm interested in. So you can write the professor, tell them that, okay, this is my academic trajectory. I think I'll be a good fit for your project. And in many cases, these professors have their own laboratories. So they have their labs where if that professor says, okay, I'm interested in you, I think you can be a part of my team, then when you get into that program, it is that professor that will be paying you from their personal grants that they've gotten for that research. So you'll be working in their lab. So you are assisting them in their own bigger project, but you are also doing your own PhD work on this side. So that is how funding works. So I mean, it's coordinated in a way that all of those details might not be clear to you, but it's actually the professor's grants that is funding you. It's not the department. In the humanities, it's mostly the department that pays for your tuition waiver and stipend. But in STEM, it's usually the professor who uses their grants to pay for you for your education and for your stipend in exchange for the work you are doing in their lab to help them with their own projects. Yeah, and I think one thing I want to also say, Mosun touched on this, but just to elaborate a little bit more, is that so the way funding works is like scratch my back, let me scratch your back. A lot of these departments need intellectual labor. They need people who teach classes for them. And so what graduate students do, especially if you are getting a teaching assistantship, is that they bring you in, you teach for them, and in exchange for that teaching, you get a tuition waiver. So you don't have to pay school fees, and then they also give you a monthly stipend for you to, as they say, keep body and soul together. so that you can continue teaching for them, of course. Yeah, so I think that is the way funding works. You work for them, so it's not like it's free. You are working for them while doing your own PhD work, and in exchange for that work that you are doing for your department, or in the case of STEM, in your professor's lab, they pay you and cover your education. So I think the next question, and Musu has talked about this, how do you search, blah, 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 how do you reach out to professors? Basic, when you are looking at schools, many schools will put clear, explicit information about funding. In fact, some programs will even tell you how much they pay their graduate students. So if it doesn't pay you, you just move on. And so always look out for that. When you are looking at programs at department, always keep an eye out for their funding, the page where they talks about their funding. And so once you see that, okay, this program offers full funding, then you can reach out to the professor or the coordinator to say, oh, I'm interested, I'm hoping to get scholarships and all of that. And I would just say this is something I found very interesting when I learned, and I think a lot of people don't know. So I think about 90% of PhD programs in the US are actually funded. So all you need to do is just to get admission into those programs and you will be funded. But not that doesn't apply to master's programs, because of course a master's program could be a professional master's program where you won't do anything for the department. So in some master's programs are funded, but in some cases you might need to state it clearly to the department that, oh, I actually need funding for this for my education if I get in. So then they can start figuring out whether they have enough money to take care of you for the 2 years you'll be there. But most PhD programs is almost implicit. All you need to do is get the admission, and then the funding is part of that admission offer. But then again, like Musun said, you always want to make sure that you are communicating clearly what your expectations are, and the department too will let you know what their expectations are. And one thing I would say before turning it over to Musun is your role would be different. I mean, your role will be dependent on the needs of your program, on the needs of your department. Some schools, you only work as a teaching assistant all through, by which I mean you'll be assisting professors in their own classes. Some schools, you will be the instructor of record, you'll be the primary instructor. So you have to also figure out, oh, if you don't feel comfortable being the one that will be solely responsible for an entire class or an entire course, then maybe you want to avoid schools where you have to be the instructor of record. There are schools where you only do TA-ship, like you only be a teaching assistant to another professor. So it always depends on the need of your department. And sometimes they even say, oh, you just help us in the writing center, right? Just like this is the place where we need someone to work for this semester. So it's always contingent on what your department needs. So Musun, do you have any?
Yes. Yes, like just to add to that, like your department may also, have like an MOU with some other like a MOU, right, with another department or with some programs.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, maybe they have like the English department in my university, they have a sort of collaboration with the business school, with the athletics center, and also with the university in general. They also have a collaboration with the university writing program. So you find some of our graduate students in those different schools, right, teaching in those different ways. So in my first year, I thought writing for engineers. Like, yes. And I got to learn about engineering and stuff, but it was fun, right? It was a wonderful experience. But that was because my department, had this relationship with the engineering faculty. Yeah, the School
School
of
of
Engineering.
Engineering.
So that's how it works. Like, it depends on your department, and just be open-minded. When you get the funding opportunity and you see that, okay, this is something that I'm interested in, be open-minded, and get ready to explore a wonderful experience, because you may never get this experience elsewhere, right? And my own is, once your funding is fully funded, is full, and okay, you don't have to start going helter skelter looking for extra funding, then and if you're fine with the department, then just go with it. And as I said, be open-minded, enjoy the journey. Like, it's an amazing experience. And I would also suggest that if you get a teaching assistantship, that you should really go for it, especially if you want to end up in teaching in a research institution, or being a professor in general. Like, it's really important for you to have that teaching experience, because after doing your first and second year of doing general teachings, then you have the opportunity to design a syllabus, where you can teach a course in line with your research interests. And that's something that you may not get elsewhere, or you may not get if you just have a fellowship and or a research assistantship, and you're just assisting a professor. For this one, like, you are designing your syllabus. You are the primary instructor, you are getting this experience. Like, it's invaluable. So it's something that you should really appreciate. Yeah. So I guess, I don't know, Kaide, do you want to add something, or should we just
No, I
wrap?
think that's about all there is to say.
Yeah.
One note I would just add from what Musun was ended off with: if they assign you to do something that you feel intimidated about, one thing you should know is that they will train you. They won't just let you like that, like, go and teach. No, they will give you sufficient training and equip you for that task. So yes, it can be unnerving, but if you have an open mind and you are willing to learn new things, it will be fun, and you will be fully equipped. They will train you for whatever they want you to do.
Yes.
Okay, guys.
All right. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
we'll
This was
see you.
fun.
Yeah, we'll
Yes, I
see
had
you
an
in the next
amazing.
video. Bye.
Bye.